So I normally don't like starting off presentations with the definition, although December did it very well. This one I found very interesting. It's the origin of the word crazy. It's from an archaic meaning of for ships or buildings, and it's full of cracks or flaws. So I found that very interesting. And what we call crazy now is actually simply just mental illness. And I want to ask a question, what if? What if somebody were to walk in right now and they would be screaming about aliens in their head? They're running around messing up Josh's nice hair. You know, what would you think about them? Any answers, just quick?
That they were crazy.
That they were crazy. But it actually all starts, I'm going to go right back to the very beginning, and the very first treatment for mental health and mental illness that I found out about was skull drills. Yeah, they thought that drilling into somebody's skull would somehow relieve pressure and make mental health issues better, as well as headaches. And then they realized that drilling into somebody's head isn't the best idea, and it just basically kills people. Here's a picture of a skull that has a hole in it, and there's multiple other ones with actually nicer holes. And then after they realized that, then they thought, hey, you know, it's probably demonic possession that's starting these things. So the treatment would be exorcism and holy water and a whole bunch of stuff. And then once they realized that that wasn't exactly the case, this was a bit nicer of a treatment. What they did was they isolated somebody, and they would preach to them and tell them why their beliefs were wrong. And, well, it's a lot nicer than drilling in someone's head. And then once they realized that drilling in somebody's head wasn't the best idea, they drilled into somebody's head. This is a lobotomy where they tried to rewire brain processes by themselves. And again, you can't do that, and it did nothing. Actually, people won Nobel Prizes for coming up with how lobotomies work, but after they won that, they realized that the pros outweigh the risk of actually doing a lobotomy. Next, they did some more messed up stuff. That was anaphylactic shock. They put people in anaphylactic shock, put them into a coma. They thought that would cure their mental health. It didn't. They also tried electroshock therapy, which made people have seizures, and they thought that seizures and mental health issues couldn't exist at the same time. They were wrong. And by the end, once they didn't know really what to do, companies came up and they created asylums. And basically, you could just throw anybody in. You could have a nephew that you were the guardian of, and he was annoying, and you could go up to the asylum and say, hey, this little kid, he's crazy. Take him off my hands. I'll pay you. And they say, absolutely, we'll take your money. I mean your nephew. And and so asylums became overcrowded. There were a whole lot of people that society didn't want to look at or even know anything about. And the quality of living was incredibly low. In so much that I believe a queen of Spain or something. That's why I read. Sorry, it's just up here. So Queen of Spain saw all this, and she started advocating for better practices in mental health and in asylums, and ended up that kind of movement ended up crossing the globe, and asylums got shut down for better practices. But how widespread really is mental health issues? And the really big question that we have to ask is, who among us has mental health issues? Raise of hands of anybody who has mental health issues, has had, or knows somebody who has mental health issues. And everybody raises their hand. That's crazy. But here's the actual numbers of what I found out going to Stats Canada, doing research and stuff. Yes. This is for students. This was a study done on students, and it's from students in the last 12 months. It was a study done on 100 students, and it was in 2015. And the number 3 for the bronze medal goes to panic attacks that go for 1 in 10 people, 1 in 10 students in Canada. The second one, silver, is depression, and that gives 1.5 out of 10. And then coming in on number 1, the gold medal, is anxiety for 1 in 5, which really sucks. And you have to keep in mind that 1 in 10 reported that they had 2 or more mental health issues that were listed in the study, and that included schizophrenia and bipolar disorder as well as depression and anxiety and panic attacks. So that's pretty high. And then also you have to keep in mind that this was done on people who actually were seeking mental treatment and were there getting help by a therapist. Imagine how many more weren't. And that was in the last 12 months. So, pretty big. And then this was another study that was done on an Aboriginal community, and it was a lot larger. They did 600,000 people, over 600,000, like 666,895 people. And what happened was they found that when it comes to suicidal thoughts, seriously thinking of committing suicide, they found that 2 in 10 people were thinking of suicidal actions, or 1 in 5. Imagine if suicidal thoughts and seriously thinking of committing suicide was as prevalent in our society as anxiety was. That's messed up and crazy. And then next, here are the big numbers. I wrote them out because there's a lot of them, but they're really interesting. The chance that you may have mental illness in a lifetime is 20%. Canadians that currently have a mental disorder is 10.4% at any given point in time. 15 to 24-year-olds with a mental disorder, that's 18% of us. That's crazy. People who commit suicide who have a mental disorder, 90%. Canadians that will experience major depressions, 8% in their lifetime. Bipolar counts for 1%, schizophrenia 1%, dissociative identity disorder 1%, that's multiple personality disorder, 1%. Anxiety is 12%, eating disorders, this is interesting, for men it's 0.3%, but for women it's 3% that may have an eating disorder. And suicide caused by deaths in Canada among 15 to 24-year-old people is 24%. Amount of, this was interesting, this was done by the National Institute on Health, on mental health. It was the amount of worldwide people who have or do hear voices in their lifetime or ever will is 3.8% worldwide. It's almost 4% of the entire world. So it's actually not that rare. And then here's the kicker. Likelihood that people with mental illness will actually commit violent crimes, no greater than normal population. And I feel like when it comes to some mental disorders, that kind of fear for people is what drove people to throw them into asylums. And that's what kind of has created this stigma among mental health and mental health issues, that instead of getting help, you need to be thrown away. So then society doesn't have to see you. But it's not in their head. It's in their head, actually. This was also done by the National Institute on Mental Health. And here, this is a normal brain. Look at this as your normal. You see activity just kind of everywhere, you know, nicely spaced around. But then you go over to OCD, and you see that there are a white-hot area of more activity in the brain. You see it everywhere. It's overactive. And then you see schizophrenia, where the areas for memory and for visual and auditory processing is overactive. And then you see bipolar, which you see all the amygdala that are in there that have to deal with just everyday emotions, and they are overactive compared to the rest of the brain. You see depression, just simple depression. And you see almost the entire brain is shut off, except for right there, and that's where your old brain is, and it deals with a strong emotion, such as extreme sadness and apathy. That's why people feel apathy, and that's why people feel extreme sadness and anger. And that's the normal brain. And that's just a few of them. There's a whole bunch that haven't been shown. The National Institute on Mental Health does say that if you get a brain scan, it doesn't conclusively show that you have a mental disorder or anything like that. However, it can definitely help to diagnose what has already been thought of in people. Next. So everybody says, you should get help. You need to get help. Well, let's try and get help. And this is where the interesting information comes. Oh, there's something blocking our path. What's that? It's like a doctor or something? Oh, there's money. It's blocking our path as well. Oh, and time's not on our side. And brains are dying. That's weird. Wait, I think Eugene McCarthy said that the only thing that saves us from the bureaucracy is inefficiency, which is very funny. However, in this case, it's killing people. Next, let's see what we would need to get therapy. The first one is hide your mental disorder from your peers, and especially your colleagues and your employers, because many people get fired each year for mental health issues, and many people have sued companies and haven't really done very good for themselves. 2 is obtain a doctor's recommendation, which can be quite hard when, for instance, I called up my doctor and I checked how long it would take for me to get an appointment with him for just a walk-in doctor, and it was a month, basically. So that's 1 month. Next, I found out that you must wait 6 to 9 months. That's almost a year to see a psychiatrist as soon as you obtain a doctor's recommendation. That is if they call you back. Because I had a friend, she went up, she got a doctor's recommendation after a while, and the doctor said, hey, you know what, I'm going to call you back as soon as, I sent a thing to the psychiatrist, as soon as they get back to me, I'll get back to you, right? Never did. That was about 7 months ago, so that 6 to 9 months hasn't even started for her, which really sucks. And then next, you see that you have to consult your insurance agency if you don't live in Canada for 2 more months to be able to make sure that you are insured and that you'll actually be paid for. Luckily in Canada, we have, for psychiatrists, we have government subsidization on psychiatrists. And then 5, spend several years in therapy until you're better. And all the while, if you can't obtain a psychiatrist, go to a psychologist and pay out of your pocket. Next, and here is the more deep thing, try not to die before all that happens. Especially for somebody dealing with depression or suicidal actions or thoughts. Waiting a year or more to see a doctor. That's crazy. And here is from the Canadian Collaborative Centre for Physician Resources. We see that there are 11 psychiatrists in Alberta per 100,000 people. That's the average. And here I'm going to start doing some math. Okay, so I found out that, so if you do that, then that's roughly 1 in 9,990,909,090,909,001. But if we round that off, because that's too big of a number, is 1 in 10,000 people. And that's just the general population. And then, mathematical, I love the way I put that up. And then next you see, but wait, not everybody actually needs help, right? Of those 10,000 people, how many people actually need help? Because actually, you can see that number everywhere. You go next, and you find out that there are 10.4%, as I said before, of people who have mental health in Canada at any given point. So we go back, and then we factor that in. 10,000 times 10.4% equals 1,040 people that need help at any given point. And there are 1 psychiatrist per 1,040 people. But the thing is that that study way back there actually showed that was just the people who were diagnosed with a mental health disorder and were already in therapy. So imagine how bigger that number is because people can't get help. Next. I went into Lethbridge, and let's see, the population of Lethbridge is 98,828 people. Next, psychiatrists in Lethbridge that I found, 5. There are 5 psychiatrists in Lethbridge, only 5. Next, so you have 5 per the population of Lethbridge, and then you factor that down, you get 1 in 19,000. So that's 1 in 20,000. That's double the average. So then you factor that in by the amount of people that need mental health, and you get 2,080 people. That is double the national average for Lethbridge. So it is twice as hard for me to get help if I were to in Lethbridge, because there is only 1 for every 2,080 people. In a year, psychiatrists see normally less than 300 patients, and you need to keep in mind that there are more patients that want to come in than come out, so they very rarely actually let in new people, because they'll see somebody for years on end. I don't blame them for that, but that makes it even harder to see a psychiatrist. So if you put in all the math, I found that in Lethbridge, 85% of people that need help go without it. So that means that people with mental health deal with stigma, with discrimination, with apathy, with bureaucracy. That's the Vogons from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I thought it was good for bureaucracy. And then, obviously, math. As we all deal with math. So what on earth can fix this problem? And it's pretty simple, but it's also not. There are 2 words for the solution: accessibility and brevity. Accessibility because people need to find help. Help needs to be more accessible to them. And brevity because it takes way too long to get help, and people are dying in the meantime. And as we know from the brain scans, that this isn't a physical problem. Mental health isn't just a mental problem, it really is a physical problem. Brains are different. And in some mental disorders, you see actually brains that are smaller or underdeveloped because of the mental disorder. So imagine if you went to the hospital and you had a broken arm, and you had to wait a year to get that broken arm set and help, you would die. And there's people that have broken brains, crazy, fractured brains, and they're not getting help. So that is the purpose of all my weird slides today, is to show that crazy, well, it's kind of crazy.